allowed to ask for more from life, like your life specifically, than you have been. So I was getting a channeled message that so you may have been humbled in life, but like overly humbled to the point where, if you like petition the universe or whatever, or like pray for things, or do manifestation or spell work or something, you may be in a position where you're literally like, okay, hold on, I like, you know I just want to be able to pay my bills this month. I just want to be able to get this job to make ends meet. I just want to be able to like feel healthy. I want my like, if you have kids or something, I just want them to be, you know what I mean? It's like, it's sort of like maybe your life was so rough or something, or even if it wasn't, I'm just getting the sense that people attempted to like humble the freak out of you in some way to make you feel like it was like selfish or greedy, or like there's this sense of like people using bougie as like a slur or something, or just this you may have been like around people who had this ideology that like opulence was sinful too. But I'm getting that like because it's like the channeled song was "Give Me More" by like Britney Spears. You are deserving of things that are nice, things that are high quality, things that are like more than just the bare minimum. I think that maybe you developed some sort of mindset due to the people around you that asking for or desiring certain things that aren't like essentials or necessities is like doing too much, or it's just that like I keep getting that like you're overly humble. It's giving that like, you may not even have any sort of like desire or craving for certain like, I don't know, it's just like this perception of you feeling like, oh, those things aren't necessary, or like I don't really need that in my life. But just because you don't need something doesn't mean it won't like add to your life. Like technically you don't need like milk and sugar in your coffee in the morning, but that doesn't mean that like, you know what I mean, it like rounds out your experience in life. You have to think that like those things wouldn't exist like cosmically if they weren't meant to be enjoyed. It's the same thing, like you have to think of like I was saying that like telling yourself that you don't need nice things or whatever, because like is the same as sort of like saying, you don't need leisure time, because technically leisure time is a luxury or whatever. I think that those things are like a right, whatever, luxury itself is a right, like you know what I mean. I'm not gonna get into that, okay? But like that's like saying, oh, I don't need to watch movies ever, or watch TV, or have yummy food or season my food because it's not necessary for me to survive. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of like you are I think that like maybe you like I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but like it's something that like got like your humility was tied with some pride. Like you almost like have this pride attached to not needing that much, or not expecting very much, and being like okay with just like having the essentials in your life, or just having like some simplicity or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with like minimalism and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean that like the things that you have in your life that compose said like minimalist, like I don't know, I'm trying to think of the word, like whatever, like minimalist catalog of items that compose your lifestyle or whatever, that doesn't mean those things can't also be like nicer, you know what I mean? And so don't feel like I just think that like this is a message from your guides, or like somebody, something, somewhere, okay, even your higher self or your inner child, that like you're allowed to like spoil yourself in some ways. Like you're allowed to do something that like people maybe in your past would have said it was extra. Some of you may come from like, I don't know, a culture or a family where maybe there was like a lot of hardship or something, to where it's just something to where like desiring nicer things was convoluted into something negative, and something like greedy and shameful and sinful, and it shouldn't be that way. Like those things exist because they are meant to be enjoyed, obviously everything in moderation, but it's also not good to sort of like starve yourself of like sensual pleasures in life, and that can involve like, just like clothes that feel nice, you know what I mean? Like things that are like good and high quality. So I guess like this whole message is about like, it's not greedy to desire more for yourself, especially if you're somebody who like has kids and like you have adopted that mindset of like, you're like, oh well, my kids have to come first, and then you're being like self-sacrificing, you know, like you aren't going to be neglecting your children just because you are treating yourself, or like you also are prioritizing your own like goals and needs, and like allowing yourself to also like develop and grow in some ways, so this could be like, so if you have kids or something like that, you may have felt like you had to just like sacrifice or give up having a love life ever and just focus on raising your kids, and that was like something that you're like prideful about, and like, yes, I'm such an amazing parent that I'm willing to like sacrifice like, my own happiness and enjoyment for my child or whatever. I'm just gonna say like that is not your kid. When they grow up, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm so glad that my parent like robbed themselves of the chance of having true love just to raise me. Because if it was a real, like, obviously relationships are complicated, but if you know trust yourself enough and you are careful and go about things in a way that's like a slow burn, not rushing, and you feel things out, and obviously you protect your kid, you know what I mean? Like, obviously don't, you know what I mean? But like, basically what I'm trying to say is that you're allowed to still live your life. You're still allowed to like strive for more regardless of the responsibilities that you already have. And I think that like being like overly humble is like also a way of like, it's also like inauthentic and fake, because you want people to see you as like martyrly or like saintly or something like that, for some reason, which, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, you don't you don't need to like sacrifice your emotional fulfillment. I keep getting this is like for people who like have young kids, and you like separated from like the father or the mother of your kids and stuff like that, but now you feel like you have to, you know put like your life is just like over, like you can't have your own dreams, and you have to sort of like shape your whole life around like making your children's dreams come true or whatever. And I will tell you from experience that like having a parent who is emotionally fulfilled, because they are all like, they are still like pouring into themselves, and not just only overly giving to the child or whatever, because that builds resentment. Okay, like it will, like, and I know people that's sort of like controversial and feels like, no, I don't resent my kids. Like you can't, it's like you can't, if you it's sort of like if you are always having this narrative that like, oh, I have to sacrifice my own needs and desires for the sake of my child or whatever, and then like, but you're going against like the call of your soul and stuff like that in order to do that, it's just going to happen that you will at some point start becoming like banger at like I almost like bitter or like angry or something like that, or like a little resentful towards your kid, regardless if it happens like, whatever age they are. It comes out like, it just like grows in your subconscious, and it will come out in the way that they are being raised, in the way that you talk to them, in the way that you treat them, in the way that you like. And also, you don't want to pass that narrative on to them either. You don't want to pass that mindset on to them that like, there's just like, oh, when a certain milestone happens, you have to throw away all of your other of your dreams, because that's how you breed people who are like really miserable and like become toxic and stuff like that. And that's not good. You can like inadvertently put yourself into a depression and be like, well, why am I so unhappy? I'm spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on like therapy and medication every year because I'm so unhappy. And sometimes the solution would literally just be like, you know what I mean, allowing yourself to ask for and seek and pursue more in your life, and stop feeling like you have to like, I don't know, like, I don't know. It's like you're like giving up allowing yourself to be completely emotionally fulfilled when it's like not necessary. Okay.